Hello, I'm James Izimoha. Welcome to African News. Let's see your headlines. Separatists in Cameroon impose lockdown ahead of general elections. Nigerian doctors urge the government to make healthcare more accessible to the masses. South African police minister asked to go on leave following corruption allegations. In Cameroon's English-speaking regions, schools are shut and streets deserted under a separatist-enforced lockdown. The move disrupts education and daily life just weeks before a high-stakes presidential election.
Armed separatists have imposed a month-long shutdown in Cameroon's northwest and southwest regions, aiming to block school reopenings and disrupt the October 12th election. The conflict, ongoing since 2016, has claimed thousands of lives and devastated education. UNICEF warns fragile progress is at risk. Teachers say the violence has instilled deep fear across English-speaking communities.
Yeah, everybody have seen what is happening, the rampant killing, especially the recent one in Malente Moyoka, where soldiers were lynched, about 8 of them. And if a soldier who moves with a gun can be killed in the field, who am I, a teacher? Who are the students who cannot be killed? So you see that the fear has been instilled in the marrow of every English-speaking Cameroonian who is aware of what is happening in Cameroon. So people don't go out because of the fear of the unknown. You don't know who the separatists are. And we know that they are targeting teachers, like I said. And if you go out, you may not return.
Students say the lockdown is severely disrupting their studies.
The disruption of schools these past 2 weeks has affected us greatly. This is because we had syllables to cover this first term, but due to the ghost town, we are unable to cover them. So it has affected us greatly, and students sometimes are scared to come to school, especially teachers, since they are being threatened.
The separatist-enforced shutdown threatens to intensify as the election nears. Analysts say both political restrictions and armed conflict risk undermining the vote's credibility. For many Anglophone residents, fear of reprisals keeps classrooms closed and futures uncertain.
Malawi has just concluded a closely watched presidential election marked by economic crisis, food insecurity and political rivalry, with incumbent Lazarus Chakwera facing off against former President Peter Mutharika. Once again, voters turned out against a backdrop of soaring inflation, corruption concerns and climate shocks that have affected livelihoods. To help us unpack this development is Tendai Mbanje, Deputy Head of Mission at the African Center of Governance, joining us from Malawi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Now, even though there are 17 presidential candidates, analysis suggests the race is primarily between Lazarus Chakwera and Peter Mutharika. What does this say about political alternatives in Malawi and the ability of third-party or novelty candidates to break in?
Thank you. Indeed, the race has been predominantly a two-man race. Of course, the third he has been a candidate also has been featuring, taking some of the votes in some constituencies. I think this election has been described by many as a choiceless election. A choiceless election in the sense that there were no alternative, there were no viable candidates after the demise of the former Vice President, Saulos Chilima. Malawians were presented with the option of having the old man who's 85 years old being the alternative in the space. The incumbent President Lazarus Chakwera has been losing popularity and has been also losing trust from the electorate due to hard-hit economic challenges that have affected the country in the past 5 years. The conditions of Most Malawians are living in abject poverty. Most Malawians are affording to make ends meet. So those are the things that has also been a challenge to the administration of President Lazarus Chakwera. So, in a nutshell, I would say that what we have seen and in our interactions with stakeholders is that there have been no choice. The Malawians were faced between hard rock and hard surface situation. What has been described by the Catholic Bishops Conference of Malawi.
Now, both Chakwera's Malawi Congress Party and Mutharika's Democratic Progressive Party have claimed victory even before the official announcement of results. And even though over 99% of votes have been counted, what are the risks to electoral credibility when parties make such premature claims? And how can the Electoral Commission safeguard legitimacy?
So the risk is that these two political parties may plunge the country into chaos, into some serious instability. We already see that the tension is brewing with both parties claiming victory. The Malawi Electoral Commission have to speed up the announcement of the election result so that they mitigate putting the country into they mitigate the tensions and also putting the country into a situation where conflict will emerge, and that conflict may actually lead to disastrous consequences. You know, elections are very sensitive, and this one is a very sensitive one. Malawians are very charged because of the economic conditions that they are in. Most are talking about fertilizers. If you go to rural communities, farming communities, the talk is about fertilizer prices. They are angry. So I think Malawi Electoral Commission has to speed up so that they inform citizens about the future of the country, because we are in a period of uncertainty, and also what lies ahead is unpredictable insofar as the stability of the country is concerned.
Now, I know you just briefly touched on the economic consequences of the election. Inflation has been over 20% for more than 3 years, and food insecurity has worsened with climate shocks. To what extent do you believe these economic and environmental pressures have shaped how Malawians have voted?
To a large extent, I must be honest with you and the world that we told the country, we told rural communities, we told farming communities. The issue has been about livelihoods. So livelihoods has indeed shaped how voters have voted. The pinch of suffering amongst poor people has shaped how they've voted. In our interactions, asking them what this election means for them, they have been always pointing that they would like to change the conditions in which they are living. They compare their life now and the previous years and say that this situation is worse than it was in the past. So indeed, the economic challenges, indeed drought, indeed the effects of poverty have shaped how Malawians have turned out to the ballot. So there are also the results that we may see could be shaped with the situation that the citizens are facing.
Now, corruption remains a key concern as both parties are accused of wrongdoing, and critics argue the incumbents' anti-corruption efforts have been selective. What must the next leader do differently to rebuild credibility and ensure fair governance?
So what we see that in the region is that incumbents who do not deliver, incumbents who do not fight corruption in a way that satisfies the electorate are booted out. So the next leader, whoever it is in the outcome of election, has to not repeat the mistakes that has been done by the current administration, particularly in not meaningfully address corruption allegations, in not addressing issues of impunity. Malawi has been described by some as a country that is growing levels of impunity, where members of the current administration were doing what they please, and also they were accused of violating the rule of law, and no arrests, no charges have been tabled against those perpetrators, and also they've been accused for plunging the resources, national resources, for personal benefit. So those are things that if you interact with stakeholders, those are some of the things that they've been saying. So the next administration ought to do differently. They ought to have a strong stance on anti-corruption, strong stance on developing the economy, strong stance on focusing on the livelihoods of the people. Without doing that, in the next elections, they are booted out.
Now, Malawi's stability is important for the broader Southern Africa region. What impact might Malawi's election outcome have on regional cooperation, cross-border food security, and investor confidence among its neighbors?
So, indeed, the region is worried. Is worried because the poverty in Malawi will affect the region. There will be movement, influx of movement to neighboring countries should there be a result that does not reflect the will of the people. Should there be chaos, should there be political instability. So irregular migration will be a challenge. That's number one. Number two is that there is conflict in a country that has already been hard hit by severe economic challenges. It's going to strain the region in trying also to address the challenge, to be a multi-layered challenge. And another three is that we are at a time, we are at a time where our regional institutions are not that strong. We see that our regional economic communities, the SADC, the ECOWAS, among other regional blocs, they're being tested, severely tested. If a member state or if a certain group of people decide to take a certain position, we see that it takes time for the regional economic community to address that. They respect the sovereignty of states. The notion of state sovereignty is very strong in how these intergovernmental organizations operate and work with. So you realize that it's Malawians who can fix their own problem. We're at a time where the region is at its weakest point. So it really, really will hurt the region to get another country finding itself in a very unstable situation where the region can only do so much. I mean, we have international election observation missions in the country, but they can only do a little.
Now, finally, given past experiences, especially in 2019 when results were nullified and high public scrutiny now, how important are international observers, as you just rightly touched upon, and transparent result management in ensuring the legitimacy of this election?
So I'm part of one of the major group of international election observation missions that are in the country. Our mandate is to assess the conduct of elections, how Malawi Electoral Commission has conducted itself in line of its own laws, in line of the laws of the land, and in line of international and regional instruments. So our assessment is from the pre-election phase, the campaign, and the voting processes. And we issued our statements yesterday, a day after the election result. So our analysis does not extend to voter tabulation, and right now the Malawi Electoral Commission is busy tabulating the results and voter announcement, among other things that will happen in the post-election day. Our assessment does not cover it, but it will be covered in the full report. So far, what our missions have found is that the elections were conducted in the confinements of the law until the voting day. So it is important that the world knows that our assessment of the statement that were issued or the role that were played was just leading to the election day to ensure that it's a successful voting day. And then, of course, there will be a post-election analysis just to also document what has happened. But the statements ends with the voting process. The counting, tabulation, and so forth are not part of what has been issued. Indeed, the process was credible until the election day. And then what happens after the election day, we are yet to also to gather information. Remember that election observation, we do not have full access to observe. We only observe the processes that can be observed. The internal processes about tabulation and so forth, we are not able to have that access. So it is important that the world knows that our role is to mitigate challenges that may be found in the electoral process, but our role is also limited because we do not have full oversight of every detail of the electoral process, particularly that relates to the tabulation of results.
Well, thank you very much for your time and insight, Ndai.
Thank you for having me.
Ghana and China are stepping up collaboration on climate change and sustainable development. At the first of its kind summit in Accra, delegates explored ways to fund green technology and protect vulnerable communities.
Ghana is bearing the brunt of the devastating impact of climate change. Seasonal floods and rising temperatures continue to threaten lives and livelihoods. Experts are warning the country remains among the most vulnerable in West Africa. This maiden edition of Ghana-China Climate Summit in Accra is hoping to turn the tide.
In the next 3 years, China is willing to carry out the 10 partnership actions, including the Green Development Partnership Action, for China, Africa to jointly promote modernization with Africa. China promises to implement 30 clean energy projects in Africa, build meteorological early warning business platform, and carry out cooperation in disaster prevention, mitigation and relief, as well as biodiversity protection.
Discussions at this summit focused on climate adaptation measures and how Ghana can leverage on green technology transfer from China.
There are a number of technologies that have matured in China. For instance, solar panel technology, electric vehicle technology, and so forth. So you can see there are a lot of opportunities in Africa for Chinese companies to then do tech transfer, to then do trade, to see ways of, if you will, disseminating and transferring these technologies to the continent.
From here, I want to see tremendous change when it comes to youth involvement, when in the policy rooms, or when it comes to finance discussions. We want to see the youth being represented, their voice being heard from there, and then we get opportunities to apply for some fundings for young innovators.
The effects of climate change see rising sea levels wiping out many coastal communities in Ghana. The World Bank estimates that poor households' income could be reduced by up to 40% by 2050 due to climate change impacts if no action is taken.
Cardiologists in Nigeria are urging immediate action to tackle the country's rising burden of cardiovascular diseases. They warn that treatment costs remain high, making prevention a critical priority. Speaking at the 54th Annual General Meeting and Scientific Conference in Abuja, doctors called on the government to implement sustainable measures that strengthen prevention strategies and improve access to life-saving care across the primary healthcare system.
We call on government to look at prevention of cardiovascular disease, that is on one end, and also to support treatment of cardiovascular disease, because these are very expensive that it is actually out of the reach of the common person. And also to stimulate health insurance in the area of cardiovascular diseases. I mean, if somebody has needs an open heart surgery, for example, some of them may need as much as 12 million naira. How many Nigerians can afford that? In this conference, some well-meaning Nigerians supported us to carry out some of these interventions in either interventional cardiology or open heart surgery. And this is what we are calling on. We are calling on government to make it more sustainable so that we'll be able to have a more heart-healthy society.
South Africa's police minister has been placed on leave after explosive allegations from a top provincial police chief. The claims involve criminal infiltration, political interference and corruption at the highest level of law enforcement.
So this commission KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Enalanhala Mkhwanazi accused Minister Senzo Makunu of colluding with criminal syndicates and obstructing high-profile investigations, prompting President Cyril Ramaphosa to place him on leave. The allegations, supported by digital evidence, highlight deep fears of political protection of criminal networks. Political analysts say the focus now is whether evidence supports the accusations of political interference and corruption.
We are here to try and see if it is possible to navigate towards some truth in terms of the allegations around the questions of political interference in the criminal justice system, criminality and corruption in the criminal justice system. So I suppose we are here to unravel as to how far deep is the rot within the criminal justice system of South Africa.
We must take action to ensure...
The controversy adds pressure on President Ramaphosa, whose anti-corruption pledge is now under scrutiny. Calls are growing for independent investigations to restore public confidence in South Africa's justice system.
Still in South Africa, a small township in Western Cape, better known for farm labor than ballet, is producing world-class dancers. At the Dancescape Center in Zolani, two brothers have risen from modest beginnings to international stages, bringing pride to their community and hope to younger students. Take a look.
In Zolani Township in South Africa's Western Cape, ballet is transforming young lives, with brothers Solima and Chuma Matiso training overseas after years at the Dancescape Dance School. Their achievements highlight how access to arts education offers hope in under-resourced communities, challenging stereotypes tied to poverty and unemployment. The brothers say dancing is a big part of their lives.
I want to make it in life. Travel, do my dancing, don't stop dancing, keep on dancing, travel, see the world, see the other dancers, perform on big stages.
As a person from South Africa, I'm always very open to meeting new people and open to being motivated by how other people from different places dance, how they interact with other people, and how they move, which is very encouraging around the environment.
Teachers say the brothers stand out for talent and discipline, seeing their artistry as exceptional.
Well, Solima has my heart because I love his sense of musicality and his ability to completely inhabit the music in the space. It's really special. Chuma I find to be very diligent, very hard on himself in a very good way, wanting to refine and clean up things and understand more about his instrument. They're both amazing movers.
Back home, their parents say the boys' journey proves that even in a small township, global opportunities are possible.
As you see, this is a very small area, so that kind of exposure is very rare, very rare this side. But we just wish they make it, they become successful, and they teach other kids their career and their talent, and pass it over to other kids from this side of ours. Because going to Cape Town, going to Johannesburg, going to New York, going to France, wow, who have thought? Who have thought? But here they are.
With nearly 50 children now training at Dancescape, Zolani's ballet story is still unfolding. For families like the Matisos, it shows how passion and opportunity can carry local dreams to a global stage.
Well, that's all we have today in Africa News. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to A News.